Welcome to Orange County Power Players, where we spotlight the personal, professional, and financial success stories of OC's top leaders. Here's your host, Danny Flores.
Welcome back to OC Power Players, where I interview some of the most successful people in Orange County. I'm Danny Flores, your host, and today's honored guest is Bryan Smeltzer, zooming in from Cola de Casa here in Orange County. Bryan is a highly accomplished business leader, entrepreneur, author, and brand strategist. He is the founder and president of LiquidMind, a global brand strategy firm that helps forward-thinking brands achieve sustainable success. With extensive experience in leadership roles across several high-profile companies, Bryan has built a reputation for driving innovation and growth. Throughout his career, Bryan has held executive roles at major brands such as Oakley, K-Swiss, TaylorMade, and adidas, where he helped shape and execute brand strategies that fueled their success. His expertise spans across various industries, including apparel and sports, as well as technology. Earlier in his career, Bryan was involved in aerospace, working on stealth technology before transitioning to the business world, where he also founded and sold an apparel company. As an author, Bryan wrote the best-selling book, The Visionary Brand, the success formula behind the world's most visionary brands, which highlights key strategies behind the success of iconic brands. He is also the host of The Visionary Chronicles, a top 50 marketing global business leadership podcast where he shares insights on innovation, leadership, and brand development, often focusing on lessons from historical and contemporary visionaries. At LiquidMind, Bryan continues to leverage his experience, helping brands develop strategic visions and grow in highly competitive markets. Welcome, Bryan.
Well, thank you, Danny. I appreciate the introduction. I hope I didn't lose your breath over that introduction, But I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
No, it's quite of an accomplishments that you have done, jumping from aerospace to what you do now, branding, writing a book, your podcast. So the question is, like, where do we start? How did you get started? And was this your dream? How did it all evolve?
Well, it kind of, interestingly enough, all started in North Dakota. I actually was born and brought up in North Dakota. It's unusual to see somebody from North Dakota these days. You see, they're a little bit like seeing an Eskimo, actually. So I always like to do the beginning of my podcast introduction with that as, where did you come from? And yeah, it's been a journey. I started out with an engineering degree, went into aerospace. That's where I wanted to be, and quickly found that I like talking to people, and I've got a creative mind. So I better get out of this as soon as I can.
Right.
And transitioned out of that, came down to Orange County and wanted to get into consumer products, and felt I might as well start from the ground up. So I started sewing buttons on shirts and putting seams on pants, and felt there's no better way to start than from the bottom up.
Right.
And ran that for 10 years, and that transitioned me into the consumer product side. So I was able to exit that business with a profitable business, and allowed me the opportunity to move into those iconic brands you mentioned, which was a great experience.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure the training that they had, to the training programs there to be able to help nurture you to become even more successful there as well, were probably amazing.
Well, I tell you a couple of things, Danny. One of my background is that the engineering degree helped me on the technical side, and the creative mind that I had allowed me to move into consumer products. And I'm a little bit like a pirate. I always say when I talk to people, they say, "What do you mean a pirate?" And I say, because I moved into the business development side when I went to Oakley because of my background in starting and running and exiting a company. They wanted me to start their new athletic division, which is now Luxottica. Luxottica purchased Oakley, is now their number one category of business, which is the laser etch eyewear, NFL, MLB, team eyewear side. And, sometimes, Danny, you'll find that they'll just throw you in the fire. That's what I find with these entrepreneurial. They figure if you run your own company for 10 years and exit it, that you kind of know everything and you know how to start something new inside of the belly of a brand. So they kind of threw me into the fire, and it was a little bit of trial by fire, but fortunately, with my background in apparel as well as the technical side, that served me really well in building the division inside of Oakley to start with, and then moved over to K-Swiss and eventually to TaylorMade and Adidas.
Wow. Okay. So let's look at when you get thrown and you said they started the division. Do they just tell you these are the results we want? Figure it out.
Well, it was interesting because the business that I was in with Utopia Sport was NCAA licensing, and it was a better men's collection apparel business, which was an unusual category for the licensed business. But I felt that there were a business opportunity inside of NCAA licensing, so I did a better men's collection, which was nicer business wear for licensed businesses. One of the first brands to actually do that. The interest to Oakley actually was the licensing side. They had the CEO of Barnes and Noble at the time that obviously did a lot of business in licensed product. And she saw, fortunately, the opportunity for Oakley to move into licensed products. So the expectation was to start this new division with the product that we currently had with Oakley, but adapting what we currently had for team eyewear, NFL, NCAA, and then I would take that over and build that business for them. So the expectation, Danny, was really, we don't understand how to build an NCAA licensing business. You do. We have the product that can adapt to that category, and we have the demographic that actually would like to purchase that product that we don't have available to them yet. And it was an extremely successful launch.
Wow, that's amazing. So basically you had all the resources there. All you had to do is figure out a way to piece them together.
Yeah, the resources were there. That's probably the biggest thing, is having the infrastructure, the ability for you to service that market. So it was a little bit different than retail. NCAA licensing is a royalty reporting category, which we hadn't had before. And it's a new channel of distribution, which we hadn't had before. And it was interesting. Oakley didn't really know what they had until the CEO of Barnes & Noble mentioned to them that this is a significant upside opportunity for Oakley, and found out that when we first launched the couple licenses that we did get with Oakley, that we had a couple major retailers at the time that actually put in pre-orders for the largest orders that Oakley ever had on eyewear, and they caught them completely off guard. And fortunately, it helped me with the resources at the time. They wanted to start small. And once those orders started coming through, obviously revenue always speaks very loudly inside of brands. And so I was able to get those orders, and then the resources came on board. So what you'll find, Danny, inside of these companies is they're very tepid in the beginning. They limit the resources. They throw you into a fire. And then once you walk through that fire, break down a few barriers along the way and prove yourself out, all of a sudden the resources become more available to you.
Yeah, so with all those pre-orders, they're like, forget small, let's just go big.
Yeah, yeah, it was a fun ride. You know, you kind of had to then control the floodgates a little bit as to expectations and managing that.
Right.
And then, you know, it's something that takes a life of its own. And interestingly enough, a lot of people that hadn't been aware at the time, Oakley was very what we called the triple S business. It was surf, skate, or snow. Anything that was a sport outside of that really wasn't anything they want to allocate resources to. So it was a challenge in the beginning until you proved yourself out and found that there was a market for that.
Right. Which that probably provides so much experience in being able to move forward into your career as you created LiquidMind, right? Now you have all this experience, you have the engineering acumen, and to be able to put it all together, your creativity, like now you're like, shoot, why don't I just do this for myself?
Yeah. Yeah, I left Oakley and actually went over to K-Swiss on the apparel side. They were looking for somebody to head up the international distribution and the sales side for their apparel and soft goods categories. And so that opened up another opportunity for me, Danny. On the eyewear side was Oakley. The apparel side was K-Swiss. And then moving from K-Swiss, I went over to the golf side with TaylorMade, and then the soft goods side again with Adidas. So I said, I've got enough eyewear, apparel, and golf equipment to last me the rest of my life. But it'll also allowed me a significant and broad experience across iconic brands both domestic and international. So yeah, it did prepare me for LiquidMind, which I always had marketing and product inside of these brands and companies, Danny. And what frustrated me the most was that when I would try to work with outside firms, they never really had anybody inside of these marketing agencies that really had come from a brand and understood what a brand needed to do intuitively. They had to be taught, and it was a lot of book smart. So it was very frustrating for me and every brand I was with. And so I had a friend of mine who I had worked with at TaylorMade, and I would always kid with him that he goes, I know, we don't have the brand experience. So I said, well, there's an opportunity that when I leave these brands, to your point, that there is an opportunity to service these brands with somebody that's been inside the company and building the team virtual before it was virtual prior to COVID, that we had a team that we can call on internationally to help these brands in very specific areas.
Yeah, no, that's interesting then. So that's how you started thinking, okay, I see what the market is missing. Let me fill that gap.
Yeah. It really was. And what I found, the success formula really was kind of this plug and play. It really wasn't an agency that had this massive overhead, which you really didn't need as a brand. Brands have very specific issues. And having been inside of brands running these departments, I knew that the opportunity was specific problems, whether it be product, whether it be marketing, whether it be sales. It wasn't these big, huge projects that necessarily required a big agency with a huge overhead and 20, 25 people to allocate to it. It was really someone with a very specific knowledge that was independent, authentic, and had the ability to just work the problem and not have me disturb our current team inside of the brand. So it was really an opportunity. We felt that if we can service that market and these brands, that we would have the ability to service these brands outside of the brand when we were with them, with LiquidMind.
So how difficult is it to go into, say, a potential new customer and look at what their needs are and find those weak spots that you can improve on?
Well, we usually pitch brands, and we fortunately have had brands that we continue to work with these days, Adidas and Nike and these brands, and we're very blessed and fortunate to have them with us for such a long time. Because what I always call, we resolve their headaches. There's many times that you'll find inside of brands and companies that are headaches, and they're things that they don't want to distract their current sales team from, but they know they're opportunities for future growth of the brand. So that's really what we go after, Danny, inside of these companies, is that we kind of intuitively know where their weak points are and where they're going to need support internally from somebody externally. And the first question always is, do you have the core expertise to help us with a specific problem? So number one, we usually know what the problem is. Number two, we can provide a solution to them that we know will work internally and won't disrupt their current flow of how they work their current teams inside of marketing, product, or sales.
So then so you can have two answers, right? One, they can say, yes, we have it. And the other one could be say, no, we don't have it. Or you're going to be a little disruptive here.
Yeah.
So what does it look like, one or the other, in being able to kind of plug and play that solution?
We're when you look at for instance, the new book I wrote with that, I have the Visionary Brand, which was my first book. And then the second book I just released, The Visionary Leader. Kind of two different ways to look at it. And it's interesting answer to your question, Danny, because when you look at the Visionary Brand, the book that I wrote, many times brands, when they look at what I call future casting of where do we want to go with this brand, internally, they really don't have the team many times that can provide the solution to the problems that they have and the barriers that they have in front of them in order to achieve their goal and their vision for the brand. So when you look at the difficulty with some of these and they say, hey, maybe we don't need product support, but we need marketing support. And the evolution of marketing changes almost daily. And trying to keep them in front of the next evolution of where they should take their brand and the strategy that they should be deploying, they really need someone that is in front of that curve. And both in front of the curve from a product standpoint as well as a marketing standpoint. And we have both of those. And that's really another aspect to LiquidMind that was an advantage for us, is that we did product and we did marketing. Many times inside of a brand, the product has to be marketed, but there's a vision for the product that they have to put in place first that works in conjunction with marketing. So we found kind of both of those ends of that formula, Danny. When we work with brands, we find one or other or both of those are issues that brands are having, and then we could provide a solution to.
Now, how big of a team did you have to build to have, so you have the resources to be able to service and continue your growth?
Well, it depends. It really depends on how many brands we work with at any point in time. It could be anywhere from 8 people that we have to 16 people that we have. So it's really a virtual team before virtual. We felt that it was interesting. A great story, Danny, is that we had a brand that we had worked with, or that I had worked with, was called Compressed Sport. And it was an international brand, and they were based out of Switzerland. And they had this very high-end product, very specialized product category, and it was mainly targeted towards triathletes. But it was a global opportunity. And I come to find out that the headquarters, although based out of Switzerland, the product team was in New Zealand, the marketing team was in the UK, and their sales team was in the US. So it was the first time I had been exposed to a brand that had a virtual team. And so it kind of stuck in my head always, this is pre-COVID, before it was kind of how it is normal today,
right?
Is that building a team relative to where the support is needed is more of a functional strategy than it is actually a business strategy. So that's where we really built LiquidMind, is fit where the need is and provide them the solution specific to where the area of support is needed. And that's why I say we really don't need to have 20 people sitting around what I call twiddling their thumbs while two people are doing 90% of the work, was what we found many times with agencies. So we built LiquidMind to have very specific strategies around supporting these brands based on the issues that they're having.
Now, when you have like the company that you mentioned, that they have teams in 3 different countries. Now, were those teams 100% virtual, even in that particular country, or did they have offices, 3 different offices that they function virtually amongst themselves?
They would have remote offices, but obviously very small. So they had support teams. So for instance, in the sales side with the United States, they would have sales teams out in the field that weren't specific to the brand, but they would be selling the product, but they would have the sales support team that would have an office that's virtual from the Switzerland main office. So it was just a real interesting, this, again, it was before COVID, before this was kind of the norm. And I thought, well, how can that work? And now all of a sudden, when you look at the world today, this is how this is how LiquidMind was built and how we structured it. We knew that was the opportunity. And fortunately, it just kind of fell into our lap. And we've been able to work with brands ever since. And we really have a specialized team that we work with. It's predominantly executives that have come from the industry that can provide a specific support around finance, marketing, sales, international distribution, whatever the specific issue is. And then we allocate someone, not an entire team, to the strategy build.
Oh, that's interesting. And then so all your team members are virtual as well.
Yeah. And we just knew that, again, we have a lead team that works with the contacts and brands in the industry and the product marketing and sales, and we'll pitch an idea that we feel intuitively they're going to need support on, having been inside of the brand, knowing that these are issues that we faced. So we have a distinct advantage over the agencies on that part.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And because, this is after COVID, and the whole workforce seems to have changed, where people just don't want to work in an office anymore, and everybody wants to work remotely. I think it opens up the resources for everybody, right? Because now you're just not limited to potential people or potential hires maybe in your neighborhood, in your county. Now you can go cross country or overseas to be able to put a team together.
Yeah, Danny, it works both ways too, because we get approached by international brands and companies that are looking to build their business in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be where you wouldn't contact a company like LiquidMind before. Now it becomes a virtual relationship
Mm-hmm.
that now becomes manageable, where it wasn't that way before. And it does open up a lot of opportunities, interestingly enough, for agencies, but also for the brands themselves, that they can now build a virtual team, not only that works directly with the brands, but also a virtual team that can work on what we call specialized projects.
Right.
These are a lot of projects that we work on that the teams just don't understand how to execute. And it would be a distraction from the teams they have in place now. And they want someone to either do due diligence on the opportunity, where we do a lot of that for companies. And then once we define that market opportunity, then they come to us to execute it.
Do you ever feel like you have to fly out and meet them face to face, or do you have clients that you've never met face to face and did the old school handshake?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a company that we worked with, Rudy Project out of Italy. Many times as I wanted to go out there and visit with them, we never had the opportunity to visit face to face because they wanted to visit the US. So
Oh, but I mean, it'd be kind of nice to go to Italy, right? Take a trip out
exactly. It was one that we had two brands, Arena out of Tolentino, Italy, and actually Rudy Project out of Venice. We did have while working with Arena, we did visit them in Italy, so that was a nice bonus.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you're over there, you'll find that they quickly say, how do we get over to the US? So we did have a lot of visits from the Rudy Project US, our international team, come to the US.
Right.
We did visit the Italy Arena team. So it happens, but we're in a country that a lot of people want to visit as well. So the teams usually come over here and visit with us as well. So it's kind of a 50-50 relationship.
Right. You take what you can get, right?
Yeah.
If you can take a trip out of it, then fine. If not, then it is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So as we wrap up our interview, what do you have cooking for the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, I just finished the Visionary Leader, so I'm on the road tour with that out there with my publicist. And also the next series of the Visionary Leader with the Visionary Chronicles podcast. I have that on a weekly podcast. And what I do is I go over chapter by chapter, the podcast episodes with the new book that I released. And then I just released also the Visionary brand, the master course as well. So that's keeping me busy, but that's one that's more passive than it is active. So we continue with the road tour and the Visionary Leader, the master course and the Visionary brand, and then LiquidMind clients that we continue to work with and help them execute their strategies. So it keeps us pretty busy day to day.
Well, no, that's great. And congratulations on your success on there. And then also thanks for sharing all these tips on how to elevate these companies and their brands. And if somebody's listening to us and they'd like to get a hold of you, how could they get a hold of you?
Yeah, we have free sessions, Danny. I know that a lot of people just kind of want to explore. They have questions. So we have free sessions with LiquidMind. It's at liquidmindsite.com, LiquidMindsite.com. So they can go there. They can just set up a free session that we meet with them and just go through the problem, answer any questions they might have. And you can also reach out to me directly at Bryan at liquidmindsite.com. If it's something I can answer, I'm happy to do that. And also bryansmeltzer.com, my own website. You can reach out to me directly there as well with any questions you might have in regards to the podcast, book, or anything that we talked about today.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your information. And once again, congratulations on your success.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate your time today. It was great to be on the show with you.
You're welcome. And to our audience, please go to ocpowerplayers.com and follow us on your favorite channel. Thanks so much, Bryan.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks for listening to Orange County Power Players. Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at ocpowerplayers.com/guest.